Indonesia, innovative strategies for improving ease of doing business and process streamlining. So I guess this is one of the key things that is one of the homeworks of Indonesia, especially for oil and gas. And again, soon we'll have our last session on the panel today, taking the theme Innovative Strategies for Improving Doing Business, improving ease of doing business and process streamlining. So we do hope that you will be joining this final session. Ladies and gentlemen, delegates and participants, we are kindly inviting you to please be seated. We are going to start with our last session of the day right now. So we invite everyone to please be seated, and maybe if you're still outside, kindly enter the Nusantara Hall. We are starting our next panel right after this. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, just before we go for lunch, we will have our last session, Innovative Strategies for Improving Ease of Doing Business and Process Streamlining. And to open this final session, we are inviting you now to direct your attention to the screen as for the introductory video that will set the context for today's discussion on regulatory streamlining and ease of doing business. Please enjoy the video.
Improving ease of doing business and process streamlining. Sektor hulu migas di Indonesia masih menghadapi tantangan, terutama dalam perizinan dan birokrasi. Menurut publikasi SKK Migas dan Indonesian Petroleum Association, untuk dapat melakukan pengusahaan kegiatan hulu migas, kontraktor kontrak kerjasama atau KKKS harus melewati 140 proses perizinan. Proses ini melibatkan 18 kementerian dan lembaga dengan waktu pengurusan izin mencapai 3 hingga 24 bulan. Tak hanya di sektor migas, secara umum kemudahan usaha di Indonesia masih perlu ditingkatkan. Hal ini tercermin dari laporan Business Ready 2024 yang dirilis Bank Dunia, di mana skor Indonesia pada aspek regulatory framework dan operational services masih berada di bawah rata-rata 50 negara yang masuk dalam laporan tersebut. Untuk mengatasi hal tersebut, pemerintah telah mengambil berbagai langkah strategis melalui deregulasi dan penyederhanaan perizinan di sektor ESDM, penerapan One Door Service Policy oleh SKK Migas, dan pengembangan sistem online single submission oleh Kementerian Investasi. Pemerintah juga membentuk Satgas Percepatan Hilirisasi dan Ketahanan Energi Nasional yang bertugas mengkoordinasikan percepatan investasi dan perizinan. Selain itu, ada Satgas Lifting Migas dengan 7 kelompok kerja, di mana salah satu kelompok kerja ini fokus pada percepatan perizinan. Pemerintah dan SKK Migas juga berupaya mempermudah investasi di sektor dekarbonisasi dengan fokus pada CCS di luar wilayah kerja migas yang didukung oleh regulasi seperti Perpres nomor 14 tahun 2024. Namun, masih diperlukan inovasi dan sinergi konkret antara pemerintah pusat, pemerintah daerah, kementerian terkait, dan pelaku industri untuk merumuskan strategi implementasi pada tataran yang lebih operasional dan teknis. Dengan langkah konkret tersebut, investasi di sektor migas niscaya dapat terus tumbuh.
Okay, so that was the video. Before we start, can I check how the energy level is? Are we ready for this session? Okay, let me try one more time. Are we ready? I like that. Thank you very much, gentlemen over there. Yes, we are ready because this is one of the bottlenecks. Hopefully, if we can overcome on how the ease of doing business is done in Indonesia, hopefully this will be good for the industry of oil and gas as well. So, as the title suggests, the session aims to explore how regulatory frameworks, interagency coordination, environmental licensing, and cross-sectoral partnerships can be streamlined to enhance Indonesia's investment climate in the energy sector. And this session will also highlight practical strategies to remove bottlenecks and foster collaboration between government bodies and industry players. And this session will be conducted in 2 languages, which is Indonesian and English. So if you need translation devices, we are providing you, and it is actually can be collected at the designated table, or you can always contact the committee for where you can get the translation devices. And of course, we're inviting you to take participation as well in this next discussion by having questions of your own. If you have anything or any great idea or aha moment, please do submit them just by scanning this QR code and open the question box, submit your questions there. Okay, so I guess it's now time to introduce our moderator, a senior leader with extensive industry experience serving on the IPA board, Bapak Ronald Gunawan. The floor is yours. There you are.
Thank you, Ibu, for the introduction. So, good morning, almost selamat siang ya. Morning all. Today we are honored to have our panelists from government and also from private sectors. And before we start, I want to give a bit a context for start. So, as we all know that our industry, we look at the long-term view. Our investment always, we talk about 20, 30 years for making an investment. For that, then we require stability. We need to have a contract sanctity, we need to have the regulatory stability, and we need to have ease of doing business. This morning, in the other session, another concurrent session, we had a session about, regularity, stability, and ease of and contract sanctity. That that happened in the morning, and now we will discuss about ease of doing business. In oil and gas business, we deal also with risk. We deal with the subsurface risk because we cannot see the oil under the ground, right? Oil and gas under the ground. So we deal with the subsurface risk. But in the other side, we also deal with the surface risk. So in this session, we will discuss about, our how to handle our surface risk. I call it surface risk. The other thing that I want to highlight today is this is related to what Minister ESDM Pak Bahlil mentioned yesterday. This related to IRR of internal rate of return, typical internal IRR for oil and gas project. If you hear yesterday what Pak Minister said, typical oil project, the IRR is around 13 to 17%. He said that the middle number is 15%. So, but the one that I want to mention in here is any delays of the projects, it will reduce the IRR. So if you plan the project that it will be finished in 1 year, in 3 years, for example, and you have any delay because of permitting issues, because of other issues, then it will delay, it will basically hitting your internal rate of return. And this make project become uneconomic with a certain case. So, and then in the other side, our country need more oil and gas. Pak Bahlil yesterday already, mentioned publicly that, we need additional 300,000 barrel oil in the 2028-2029, and that one required a lot of efforts from all of us. I think in oil industry, the thing is a speed, right? We need to move fast. We need to make execute fast, and to produce oil and gas to balance the decline. And then in response to that one, Pak Prabowo mentioned two key points from several key points that he mentioned yesterday. First, he mentioned about the simplification of the regulations. I think that's the one that we will keep in mind. And then he mentioned also about creating good investment climate. So if that basically happen, I think it will help for IOC, for investor to make investment in Indonesia. So in this session, we are honored that we will have our panelists today. First, I will call Pak Awang Laswardi. Pak Awang. Pak Awang is the Director of Development and Production for Pertamina Hulu Energy. He has been in industry for many, many years. I don't know, 20 something. Hello? Yeah. For around 20 years in industry, 20 years in industries, and he's now holding a Director of Development and Production for Pertamina Hulu Energy. And next I will call for Ibu Sarah. Ibu Sarah Al-Beker is a General Manager of Kupek Indonesia Anambas BV, so basically country manager of Kupek Indonesia. Ibu Sarah has an international experience working in Australia, working in Kuwait, and now posted in Indonesia. So thank you, Ibu Sarah, for your time. And I will call Pak George. Pak George Nicholas Marsala Simanjuntak. Pak George is the head of formalities for Formalities Division for SKK Migas. Pak George has a quite variety of experience, both in oil and gas and also in other sectors. So he's the one that basically handling land acquisitions, permitting in SKK Migas. Thank you, Pak George. And then I will call Pak Firdaus Alim Damopoli. Pak Firdaus is the Direktur Perlindungan dan Pengolahan Mutu Air, ya, di KLH Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup. And then I will call for Pak Dr. Agus Budi Santoso. Pak Agus is a Director of Forest Resources Inventory and Monitoring di Kementerian Kehutanan. Terima kasih, Pak Agus. Okay, we have around 40 minutes to, so we have our panelists. I will start first with Pak Awang. So Pak Awang, PHA is Pertamina is basically the major oil and gas player. This is a state-owned company. Basically, you have a lot of areas in Indonesia. You produce 70% of hydrocarbon in Indonesia. Can you tell us, your experience in the last 5 years? Let's say last 5 years. What basically any changes or any improvement related to permitting?
Thank you, Pak Ronald. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to be here to share our experience, and also will be discussing with other panelists. Yes, Pak Ronald, as a PHE is the PHE right now is, as you mentioned, that we are the main player in oil and gas in Indonesia. And then for right now, we are managing several activities across of Indonesia and also globally, actually. And then right now, we are doing some project not only for brownfield development, but also greenfield development. With my experience for the last 5 years, first that I do appreciate for the government agency and also other stakeholders that there are several improvement in terms of a licensing process and also permitting system. This is very important for us, especially in current situation that, as mentioned yesterday by our president, that to achieve national resilience, we must also be resilient in energy. And right now, the condition is challenging because of the situation of our field is getting more mature, and then need capital investment higher than before because we have to go deeper water environment. That means that, as you mentioned earlier, Pak Ronald, that the project is very sensitive in terms of capex, volume, and also timeline. In here, maybe I would like to highlight that even though the government already make a proactive action, for example, that in Ministry of ESDM already built a task force in several topics, including the permitting system. But again, that the project very sensitive on the timeline because of if the project delay, that means it will reduce our economic level, which is right now, as I mentioned, that needing more capex, and also the price is not stable, and right now is 60 to 65 USD per barrel. So there is always room for improvement. Our expectation as an oil and gas company that if we do the simplification on ease of doing business in terms of permitting system, in terms of licensing process, that will be beneficial for all, because many projects can be sanctioned for the FID, and then the ultimate result is the production will increase. Yes, we understand that the licensing process or permitting system is the objective is, we acknowledge that is very important also because of to make sure that the oil and gas business is conducted as per legal or regulation. But again, our expectation that if there is a room for improvement to simplify the streamlining the process, and also the alignment between the central government regulation and local government regulation, that's also important. That will make us as a practitioner in oil and gas business will make easier for us. Thank you, Warren.
Thank you, Pak. I think, overall you think there is a improvement in the last couple of years, yeah? We will discuss later about that one. I will go to Ibu Sarah. KUFPEC just about to embark new offshore project. You are quite new in Indonesia. You already involved directly with all the permitting stuff. Can you tell us, your experience in doing the, dealing with all the permitting, related to your offshore project in Natuna?
Thank you, Ronald. First of all, I'm honored to be part of. I'm really honored to be part of this discussion. So back to your question, from KUFPEC perspective, as an active investor in the oil and gas sector in Indonesia, for over more 40 years, we've been here since the 1980, and with Anambas, let's say recent BOD approval, we'll be back as an operator. We believe that simplifying bureaucracy and improving interagency coordination are essential to enhance the Indonesia upstream investment climate. And there should be, as mentioned by Bader, there is always be room for improvement. So the key policy reforms, which is, we believe, the integrated regulatory review. We have applied the same between SKK and MAGAS, and this is shown in Anambas case where we granted the BOD, and should be expanded for interagency coordination. For others, let's say collaborative model, this collaborative model should be extended to local government and environmental authority to streamlining the permit and licensing.
Okay. Okay, we will continue with Pak George. Pak George, you are well known in our, industry as a, when we deal with permitting, we deal with land acquisition, we always call Pak George. So, can you give us, can you explain to us, the process, how you go with for the permitting, to see how we in industry we follow the process, right? Can you explain to us the process that in SK Chemicals, how you go with all the process before we got all the license to operate?
Okay, thank you, Pak Ronald. Should I say good morning? Good morning, everyone. This is a bit heavy for me because the two investors said that we want to have the streamlining, and also our President Republic of Indonesia said yesterday that the regulation should be more effective in terms of how to dealing with the permit and licensing. So, first of all, before I
Pak George, you want to show something for the presentation, or?
Yeah, this is a little bit jamming in here, so I need to work it out first. And okay, before I explain about the process of how you are carrying out all the permit and all the permitting stuff, I need to explain to you that, however, it is essential that to acknowledge that the regulatory bureaucracy is not the only factor undermining the project success. So bureaucracy is not the only one. What I want to tell you this time, there is also the internal gaps within ourselves. So from my experience, when I dealing with the formalities division, when I dealing with the managing all the issues about the permitting, and then about the permitting. So we formulate the three pillars. What is the three pillars? The three pillars is, first of all, we should have effective coordination between project planning and the operation, and then the formalities. So that is the most important thing. And to ensure the effective coordination, we need to have the planning function and the formalities function working together. So that is the key spot. So the point that I would like to explain to you, that the licensing and regulatory compliance should involve in the project before they execute the project. So as you can see in the big screen, would you please showing in the big screen?
Can you show the presentation in the screen?
Okay, while we're waiting for the big screen coming up, I would like to explain a little bit about engaging the counterpart between the project and the formalities division. Secondly, land acquisition and special land. So your people from the formalities department should have the knowledge about the coordination and geospatial mapping. And then thirdly, about the community development. Community development is not the one-time investment, it is the long-term investment. Why I say like that? Because community development, in the end of the day, we should be able to know how much we spend and what is our gain for the community development. So then we can formulate what is the SROI. SROI is social return on investment. Okay, here you go. So this is the three key project and operation coordination. So as we begin in the first box, there is a planning, POD, pre-FEED and FEED. usually it took like 1 up until 3 months to make a POD, pre-feed and feed. So what happened in the reality, the people from the planning function is not really coordinating with the formality function. So in result, all the data when they submit to the OSS, we all know the OSS, right? Now OSS, so the data is back and forth because lack of the data. Probably the map is totally different than the one that they want to be discovered and stuff and so forth and so forth. So that is the most important thing. That is the first data-driven planning integration. So if the data-driven planning integration works so well, so might be, we can reduce from 3 months, probably 1 month, probably 2 months. It depends how you design your data, how you design your POD, pre-feed and feed, and also the coordination, the mapping. For example, if you want to have the KKPRL dealing with the Minister of KKP, Minister of Marine and Fishery. For example, this one is 3 up until 6 months. So in the regulation, it says that 21 day, if I'm not mistaken. So why don't we give them the good data, the proper data, so they work probably less than 21 days. So it means we're cutting like 5 months instead of 3 months, instead of 6 months. And also KKPRD dealing with the Minister of ATR BPN. And also, for example, we also dealing with the UKL, UPL and AMDAL. UKL, UPL and AMDAL, we are dealing with the Minister of the Environment. So it takes probably about 6 and 12 months. So if you have a good data, a proper data, exactly the same that we want to explore, so maybe cutting to become 6 and 5 months. So what I'm trying to say, we need a big mirror to see our faces. Are we handsome? Are we pretty? It's like that. So in the minister, they want the handsome and pretty document that landing in their desk. So make their work become easier for them. So that is the fundamental things that I want to explain to you from the SKK Migas point of view. So the PSC should put the good people or the good consulting company to arrange all the data, all the document in order them to submit in the OSS. So it becomes streamlining. And also the state's land acquisition. So there is goes to number two, collaboration with the government and the institution. And also, if you can see the states and land acquisition. So this is also most important. If we say we have the land acquisition for above 5 hectare, yeah? 5 hectare. Am I still in the time, Pak Ronald? Still? Okay. Above 5 hectare, it means pengadaan skala besar in Indonesia. So we need 12 to 24 months. Wow, for the investor point of view, I think it takes ages. Yeah? In other country, if you want to acquisition the land, probably, I don't know, if you want to acquisition the land, tomorrow you can go to see the land and you can use the land. And here, we cannot do that. And also, pengadaan skala kecil di bawah 5 hectare, 3 and 4 months. So, like I said before, if we implement the number 3, which is the CID and the CBS, we can reduce the demonstration in the area. For example, when we conduct and carry out the land acquisition, there is a possibility that the local people is not agree because they think that their life is less prosperous than those in other places. Because what? Near their house, there is a oil and gas activities. Why so many years their life still like that? So that is in their mind, something like that. So in order we are spending more of the PPM, what we call program penganan masyarakat, or what we call the community CSR, we have the long-term investment. What is the long-term investment? The investment that we gain in the future, and maybe in the middle or long term. That's why, hopefully, SKK Migas can formulate the return on investment on the PPM planning. And also the LSD and LP2B, if you can see on the other, beside the land acquisition box, we dealing with the agriculture minister. This is also important thing to us for the PSGs to have a good consulting company. Usually we are using the university, Pak Ronald. University, local university, to dealing with all the document that agriculture minister needed. And also the PPKH, kawasan hutan, the forestry ministry, it took 3 months. I mean, all the things that I put in here, it can be reduced. This is important for the investor. It could be reduced maybe 2 or 3 months. Even though we are dealing with that, we need to have a proper data. That is the most important thing, Pak. Okay. How to ease the permit.
So if you look at this chart, the bottom line in here is, the fastest you can get you can finish all the process. I calculate in here is 16 months.
Doing nothing, eh? This is as usual.
16 months. But if the worst case scenario, you can end up with about 2-3 years.
Yeah, but like not all doing the sequence, yeah. You can do a parallel for the green one. Some of them you can do parallel. Not all doing the sequence.
Okay. No, but if you look at this, like 3 months, 6 months, and then 3 months, if you do in parallel, and then 6 months, it will be at least 1.5 years, right? So, okay. I think this is very, very good, information that you put all together, the process. Now, kita ke Pak Alif ya, Pak Alif dulu ya, Pak Alif. Pak Alif, if you look at this, the schematic that Pak George put together, bisa Bapak tolong dilihat apa kira-kira menurut Bapak yang bisa kita streamlining ya dari situ. Jadi prosesnya itu bisa lebih cepat.
Baik, terima kasih Pak. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kami dari Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup, jadi problem atau permasalahan utamanya adalah kaitannya dengan penerbitan dari persetujuan lingkungan, itu berupa dokumen baik itu AMDAL ataupun UKLPL yang membutuhkan waktu itu range antara 8 sampai dengan 1 tahun. Jadi kalau untuk skalanya UKLPL yang tidak dengan AMDAL, yang tidak wajib AMDAL itu sekitar 6 sampai 8 bulan, sedangkan untuk yang AMDAL itu 11 sampai 12 bulan. Nah, bagaimana kita sekarang bisa memperpendek jangka waktunya itu tadi benar dikatakan oleh Pak Ronald adalah kaitannya dengan koordinasi tadi dan komunikasi. Kata kuncinya sih di situ. Jadi kita bisa saat ini Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup itu sedang merevisi beberapa peraturannya.
Maaf Pak, sorry sebentar. Tolong itunya di layarnya ditaruh di sini bisa. Yang dari presentasinya Pak ini dulu, Pak George,
ya,
slide-nya Pak George.
Nah ini, kalau kita lihat di sini, UKLPL atau AMDAL itu 6 sampai dengan 12 bulan. Nah ini kita akan mempendek dengan caranya apa? Sebenarnya kita sudah dalam tahapan untuk merevisi aturan kita sendiri. Kalau kita bisa mempercepat, ya 6 bulan lah, terutama untuk AMDAL, kemudian UKLPL diperpendek lagi menjadi 3 bulan ke depannya. Ini sedang kita review dan revisi. Jadi contohnya adalah untuk AMDAL itu kan ada 4 dokumen lingkungan yang harus atau wajib disubmit ke kita. mulai dari kerangka acuan ANDAL, kemudian ANDALnya sendiri dan RKRFL. Nah, ini kita sedang merevisi Permen LHK nomor 137 tahun 2021 bahwa kita nanti ke depannya kerangka acuan itu hanya berbentuk template saja. Template. Jadi untuk mengurangi itu. Jadi memang heavy-nya itu lebih beratnya atau muatannya itu ada di analisis dampak lingkungannya. Jadi itu untuk memperpendek. Kemudian juga di kita itu ada kaitannya sebelum memiliki persetujuan lingkungan itu ada diminta pelaku usaha untuk membuat persetujuan teknis. Itu membutuhkan waktu juga sekitar 3 bulan. Kemudian SLO itu butuh waktu sekitar 15 hari. Ini lama memperpanjang juga. Nah ini ke depan juga untuk persetujuan teknis itu akan dibahas bersama dengan pada waktu kita akan melakukan sidang komisi di AMDAL, jadi satu di situ. Sehingga pada waktu sudah disepakati, maka kita akan otomatis akan menerbitkan persetujuan teknisnya. Setelah itu baru diproses untuk penerbitan dari persetujuan lingkungannya. Nah kemudian setelah mendapatkan itu baru diproses lagi kaitannya dengan surat layak operasi. Itu untuk misalnya pembuangan air limbah ke badan air, kemudian SLO untuk emisi udara maupun pengolahan limbah B3. Jadi saat ini kita sedang mempercepat prosesnya dan sebelumnya pertemuan yang di Hotel Borobudur ya Pak ya, kita sudah sepakati bahwa dari pihak kami dari KLH dengan SKK Migas dan beberapa perusahaan di tahap awal itu sudah membuat perencanaan yang matang sehingga kita bisa mempercepat apa saja sih. Jadi kita akan dahulukan ini Pak, khusus untuk migas ini. Jadi dari depan, dari awal, di awal tahun sudah perencanaan apa saja sih kegiatan-kegiatan yang misalnya untuk eksplorasi atau dia pengembangan, itu bisa kita jadikan karena dia energi, kita utamakan energi, itu kita utamakan. Jadi begitu Pak, terima kasih.
Nah kalau kalau seperti itu berarti kita bisa squeeze kira-kira berapa ini Pak?
Ya tadi saya sampaikan kalau memang kita bisa percepat antara 3 sampai 6 bulan Pak, khusus untuk persetujuan lingkungan.
9 bulan?
3 sampai 6 bulan.
3 sampai 6 bulan?
Iya. Untuk pembahasan informasinya kemarin saya dapatkan dari Deputi Tata Lingkungan, pembahasan untuk AMDAL itu sehari hanya 4 jam aja efektifnya. Kalau selama ini kan kita sampai berjam-jam, 6 jam, 8 jam gitu ya. Sekarang udah dibatasi 4 jam. Malah Pak Menteri sampaikan kalau bisa jangan 4 jam, 2 jam. Kalau 2 jam juga kurang efektif. Karena kan semua stakeholder kan ingin bicara juga di situ Pak. Jadi insya Allah untuk pembahasan ANDAL itu 4 jam.
Itu kalau semuanya maksudnya lancar, data-datanya konsisten.
Betul,
ya.
betul.
So I think that's good for us for reflection as well. You know, many times we just complain that the data that the process is too long. Sometimes we make our mistake as well, right? We come to KLH and then, sometimes we change the data. You change the well locations, for example, the one that Pak George mentioned, and you start from zero, right? After that, so I think that's the thing that I think we need to reflect back. So thank you Pak Alif. Sekarang saya ke Pak Agus. In oil and gas, every time you move.
Sedikit tambahin dikit, sedikit saya mau menambahkan.
Okay.
So what that Pak Alim just said, the data. So in the future we need to make the consultant become good ya Pak ya. Artinya we need to select the good consultant company in order to do the step by step what is the, for example, environmental izin, environmental permit. So no need to go back and forth. So we need to beresin semuanya untuk masalah konsultan ini. In the future, hopefully this year, hopefully. Ya Pak ya, so it's good for the PSGs that usually one consultant handling like 20 PSGs, so it's too much for them. So we need a very, very qualified consultant company in order to dealing with the AMDAL, UKL, UPL, and sort of. It's like that, Pak. From SKK Migas, we'll taking care of the how to pick the best consultant out of the many consultant is in the market. Ya, Pak.
So what's your definition of qualified consultant?
Sorry, Pak.
Konsultan yang qualified itu definisinya apa?
Yang nggak qualified, it means that one consultant has like 20 or 30 PSCs, client. So it's too many for them. So they are not focusing on their document. For example, maybe Pak Alim receive and maybe people from the forestry minister, for example, they need to drill in this site, so the document this site. So there is no relevant document that they submitted into the OSS, something like that, Pak. It happens a lot. It happens a lot. Ya, Pak, ya.
Okay, you touched the OSS. I think, many times we are having problem also with OSS. Can you tell us, your experience with OSS? Pak.
Yeah. So, hang on, I'd like to open my, okay. So, I think last time when we know about the ODSP, we have the ODSP One Service Door policy, but not yet been digitalized. The OSS is one step further. They are already digitalized. So this OSS, we hope this OSS can help us a lot, Pak. So more digitalized. So if we are talking digitalization, one thing that we should remember, we should prepare ourselves to have a checklist for the data that the OSS need or for the data that required data that the minister needs. So there is no error for us. If we submit it, then one of the data or the checklist is gone, so it goes back again. So something like that, Pak. So the OSS, I think, is very good for us.
Okay.
This is the thing that I know about the OSS. And also, OSS now support the integration of the environmental approvers such as PERTEK and UKL-UPL, and also special planning like KKPR, and also investment registration under the single digital umbrella. So I think this is the good for Indonesia government to have the digitalization on permitting. So what we need is to give the feedback. I mean, the PSCs know about all the data, all about the business, and we sit in the government need input how to make the OSS or digital system to become better and better to serve the investor. I think it's like that, Pak Ronald.
Okay, thank you, Pak George. Now we go to Pak Agus. Pak Agus, in our industry, every time we move, we always, have a political touch the area hutan, so forestry area, every time. Can you give us your, opinion on, like the use of forest area for non-forest business, and then also, the moratorium of giving new license to do business inside the forest.
Thank you, Pak.
Yeah.
Pak George. Good morning, or should I say good day, honorable participants, all of you, thank you. Actually, we understand that if we're talking about the forest, can propel the economy by various activities. The first one is forestry business inside the forest area, and the second one is non-forestry businesses inside the forest area. For instance, of course, oil and gas usually intact with our forest area, and I will talk to you about this slide. We call it the forest area utilization approval. By the end of 2024, our minister has already conduct application, what we call it synergy, to simplify the process and to speed up the process. If you have the touching with the forest, then you can go to the synergy application, web-based, and then you can just monitor the process. In the synergy, you can do at least 4 activities. The first one is what we call application submissions. And the second step, we call it technical assessment for our minister side. And then the third one is approval issuance. And of course, the last type will be monitoring and compliance. You know that right now, the oil and gas drilling is already exemption that you can done inside the forest area. And the second presentation I will give to you is about the moratorium. Next, please. Or in Bahasa, we call it PPIP. We call it PPIP in Bahasa. Peta indikatif penghentian pemberian izin baru. Actually, it's begin in COP27 in Bali, the initiative, and then goes to presidential decree in 2011, moratorium policy, and become stronger in 2019 to become the permanent moratorium policy. But don't be worried because your activities, oil and gas, is already exemption in the presidential decree. So you are still go do your business inside the forest area. But yes, of course, you still have to provide some evidence that certify that your project is exemption for this permanent moratorium project. I think is government side, because you know our government need both of you need your investment to speed up our economies, national economy. So I think what we done in the Minister of Forestry is in line with the topic of this meeting, I think. I hope we can do more efficient and effective doing enhancing and speeding the permit and license that Pak George already mentioned in the previous slide. Thank you.
So, Pak, I just want to have more clarification on the exemptions for oil and gas, right? For oil and gas in the forest area for non-forest business. So, if we get an exemption, we come to your forest department. We need to have a proof that what's the type, how we provide the proof that we are basically got an exemption.
Usually, according to my experience in this year, I think it's about 2 weeks. If your data is complete, because sorry to mention to you all, but sometimes company sending the letter to us is not complete. They don't provide, for instance, the map, the data of the maps. Did not provide clearance from the Ministry of Energy and Sumber Daya Mineral, for instance. But if you are complete set of data, and then it will go to only 2 weeks. But still, yes, you have to, what we call it, identify identify yourself, and to ensure that your company is certainly excluded, which is proven by the letter signed by me. Yeah, I think what Pak George SKK Migas is we have already meeting several times. Yeah, we have already make agreement how to speed up the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Agus. Now we have, I think I want to open 2 or 3 questions from the floor. If any questions? Okay. So there's a question from Gina to Pak Firdaus. Apa strategi? So what is your strategy related to permitting on low carbon environment business such as ESG program or CCS, CCUS? Jadi buat Pak Firdaus, apa strateginya yang related ke permitting untuk low carbon business yang related ke CCS, CCUS? Apakah regulasinya masih sama dengan yang di oil and gas industry, normal oil and gas business?
Ya, kebetulan ini kita ada unit tersendiri ya, namanya Deputy Pengendalian Perubahan Iklim. Jadi kita itu masih, betul kita masih menggunakan aturan yang lama, tetapi memang kalau kita ketahui bersama bahwa memang ini sekarang kita direktorat baru yang mengurusi terkait dengan carbon trading. Jadi saya belum tahu banyak apa yang sudah kita lakukan, tapi nanti akan saya tanyakan kembali kepada teman-teman di sana strategi yang terbaru seperti apa. Untuk yang sementara ini kita masih menggunakan yang lama. Tadi apa yang disampaikan. Begitu Pak. Terima kasih.
Buat Pak Agus, anything you want to add, Pak?
Yeah, I think we both of our government will always welcome to all of you petroleum businesses investor that interested in invest in Indonesia, but you know that as government, we have responsibility to maintain the balance between the economic activity and the other side to protect the forest, because forest is one of our natural resources treasuries. So I think we can continue both of it. The economic activities will be done smoothly and the forest will be maintained as it is. Thank you.
Okay, we are now come to the close. I think I just want to give like a final closing remarks. What I see from the discussion, I think all of, from the players, from the government, we have this, I think we already have the same, alignment, yeah? The same alignment. We want to speed up all the process. We want to make sure that we can operate more efficiently. We can produce oil and gas as soon as possible. Time to producing is very important. And the thing now is we need to have more collaborations, like what Pak Prabowo said, that how we can proceed is with more collaborations. For collaboration, we need among the parties, we need to make sure we have the same alignment. We don't want to have like KLH go in this way, forestry ministry go to the other way, and industry go to the other way. I think in here then SKK Migas become like, SKK Migas become like a catalyst to make sure that all become, we can get a good alignment. among the stakeholders. So once again, thank you very much to Ibu Sarah, Pak Awang, Pak Agus, Pak Alim, and Pak George for your insights, and thank you all for attending this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bapak Ronald Gunawan, and thank you for the panel discussion. We're inviting everyone to please stand up and move a little bit forward from where you're sitting for receiving the mementos from the IPA board. And for this occasion, I would like to invite Mr. Sergio Mora Diaz Guerra and Mr. Bapak Haryadi Budiman to deliver the mementos to the speakers and moderator for the session, which is the final session of IPA 2025 in the plenary. So all things discussed about ease of doing business, which is a key to achieve the increase in oil and gas production, streamlining and efficiency in the upstream oil and gas sector through the help of technology in order to reach energy resiliency in Indonesia. And we also looked through how to better up regulation optimization, improving licensing efficiency, and leveraging technology to support investment, exploration, and production operations. Thank you. Please take pictures together. Pak Hari, yes. Don't forget to face the camera, everyone, and smile. We thank you very much for your insights, for your time and contributions to IPA, all speakers especially, and moderator who have led the moderated session this morning, close to lunchtime. Thank you very much. You may all return to your seat. And let's give a big round of applause for this final session of plenary at IPA. Yes, so at the very last day, we hope that there are a lot of key takeaways from what we discussed throughout the 3 days. And with this, we conclude the final session of the 49th IPA Convex 2025. Would like to extend our sincere gratitude for all participants, moderators, speakers, and of course the organizers for their dedication and valuable contributions to this Convex, and your commitment in advancing Indonesia's energy sector has been instrumental in making this convention a successful and inspiring event. And we look forward for the future opportunities. We hope to see you again at IPA next year, and we will continue to explore innovative solutions and strengthen our collaborations. And ladies and gentlemen, we do hope that you don't go anywhere yet, because after this we'll have a closing ceremony that will commence at 2 p.m. right here at Nusantara Room at the main hall. And in the meantime, we are going to prepare for the room for the closing ceremony. So we're inviting everyone to continue your networking outside the Nusantara Hall. But certainly we look forward to see you back here at 2 p.m. And with this, we'd like to close the plenary session of IPA 2025. My name is Rahma Alia. I'm finally signing off. Thank you very much, and we see you hopefully at IPA 2026, and have the rest of the day pleasantly, and hopefully Energy Indonesia will move forward as ever. Thank you and see you. Bye-bye.